Hey everyone, today we are in Matthew 25, verse 40. And leading up to this verse, Jesus is doing a whole bunch of teaching on how to make the most of the life we've been given here on this earth, what we have waiting for us after. And he makes a statement in verse 40. And here's what the statement says. It says, "The king will reply, 'Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me.'" A long time ago, my wife and I, we were a little bit late, but we hadn't eaten anything. And so we rolled through a Taco Bell drive-through. And I was content on just ordering as quick as possible and hitting the highway so that we would be a little less late than we already were. I was about to order and I noticed that there was a guy that was rummaging through the trash can, the big dumpster right behind the board with all the menu items on it. I decided to throw a blinder up because ultimately I thought in my mind, I don't have time for this right now. All the while I'm about to order and I feel out of the corner of my eye, I feel a burning sensation in the side of my head. Because you know that sense where somebody is looking at you and you don't even know that they're looking at you, but you can actually feel that they are looking at you? I had that going on because my wife had realized that I'd thrown a blind eye to this complete stranger digging through the dumpster. And so she was now looking at me to see what I was going to do next. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I felt like throwing a blinder to my new bride as well because, man, we were already really late. I didn't have time for this interruption, and I didn't really want to spend the extra money on a complete stranger. But as I got up to the drive-through window to pay for our food, I asked the lady to include a $10 gift card as well. I then pulled out of the drive-through line, and I approached this complete stranger, and I looked at him in his eyes, and I said to him, "Hey, man, why don't you go in and order something that's actually made just for you?" And I handed him the gift card, and I thought that that was it. Well, a couple weeks later, I'm walking into an AM PM. I'm paying for my gas, and I was thinking maybe I'll pick up a sports drink or something. And I see that guy sitting on the wall. And something stirred in me. It almost made me pause because now I'm not in a hurry. And so now I'm going to take what I read throughout Scripture of the Son of Man who came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. I now have to have the opportunity to not just read things, but actually put them into practice. And I look at this guy who a couple of weeks ago I'd handed a gift card to and hurried down the highway. Now I had a little bit of time. And I stopped and I got down on his level, which is hard for me to do because I'm a pretty tall guy. And I look at him in his eyes and I go, "Hey man, would you like a sandwich?" And he said, "Absolutely." So I went in and I got him a sandwich. And there was something that took place while I was in there because it's easy for me to be generous with my possessions, but it's not easy for me to be generous with my time. I thought, man, getting this guy a sandwich is one thing, but actually having a meal, actually sharing a sandwich with this guy is something completely different. So I don't order just one sandwich, I order two. And I get a couple of chips and I get a nice cool drink for each of us. And I sit down next to him up against the wall of an AM PM in my hometown and I have lunch. And this guy's name is Carlos. And I hear all about Carlos' life. And I hear why Carlos is on the street. And I learn about his family and his upbringing and his hopes for his future. And it was a really, really, really well spent 30 minutes. And for whatever reason, God kept bringing Carlos into my path over and over and over again. And God did a really cool work of redeeming in his life, not just from a physical sense or a financial sense, but from a spiritual sense as well. And God in his graciousness allowed me to be a little part of that. As we read this scripture, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." And it's easy to look at that scripture and think about the Carloses in your life where their needs are very, very evident because they're on the exterior of their existence. But I want to challenge you guys with this thought, that every person that we come across is a least of these, including ourselves. See, apart from the redeeming work of Jesus, we are all God's enemy. We all have the same fate. And he extends to us this good gift known as the gospel, the good news of great joy for all people. When we accept that, we are no longer the least of these, but we are a child, but yet we still have some of that least of these tendencies, some of those needs. And because God desires to use his church, not the building, but the people, to meet the needs of others, you have been someone's least of these before. And I have too. And I know this for a fact, that we have people in our lives, some that we do life with every single day, and some that we might just haphazardly pass by on a weekly basis, that God is conditioning our hearts and our minds to serve them, to see them. Those with needs on the exterior and those that have deep, dark needs buried in the interior. And he's going to use you, and he's going to use myself to reach those needs, not out of anything that we've done or anything that we are, but how he chooses to work in and through our lives. So my challenge to you, as we live this life of humility, not thinking less of ourselves, but thinking about ourselves less, how has God positioned you to serve the least of these in your life? And how has he allowed other people to serve you? Man, so grateful for how he chooses to use us and how he works in and through us. I hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next time.